Things keep disappearing from school. Student cracks the case open. A small town in Louisiana had a theft spree case that continued over a couple of months. Lockers became void of students' laptops, calculators, and personal possessions, but the principal seemed to be turning a blind eye. However, one student was fed up and wanted to know the identity behind the culprit. But it was someone they would never have expected. This story was shared on Reddit by the user u/Denakius, to whom we shall refer as Jake from now on. Jake was in 10th grade when this crime wave took place. And he was a collaborator in the plot that would bring the thief to the public eye and make him face the consequences of his actions. The principal claimed that it was all due to the students sharing the lockers' combinations with one another or having combinations that were too simple or easy to guess. So when the theft spree started happening, it was all put on the students, that is, the victims themselves. And that wasn't all. What the school did about it was even more outrageous. Every student that had their locker stolen was charged $150 to change the combination, as the school needed to hire a locksmith to change the lock. So the students lost not only what had been stolen from their lockers, but also $150 that they had to pay to the school. It was a disgrace. But the worst thing was that the thefts didn't stop. As time went on, more and more students kept having stuff stolen from their lockers. It didn't matter how many times they changed the lock or how intricate their combination was, nothing seemed to stop the mysterious thief. Even Jake had something extremely valuable stolen from his locker, a graphic calculator worth a few $100s. His uncle had a friend who worked as a detective for the county. He talked to him about what was going on at his school and, after giving it a think, the detective agreed to investigate it. So one day, the detective went to the school, asked to see the principal, and made him an offer. He suggested setting up cameras in the hall, next to the lockers, so the thief could be discovered. But the principal opposed the idea. The detective would need a warrant to do that, and it would take months to get one. However, the detective had another trick up his sleeve. So one day, he went to visit Jake and suggested that he be a part of his plan. He gave Jake a brand new laptop and asked him to put it in his locker. He didn't explain what he was scheming, but he asked something else of him. He should tell everyone he knew about his new laptop. Although he was a bit confused, Jake agreed. And a few days later, his laptop was gone. He told the detective about it. "Stand by for the show. Oh, and you reported the theft to the police, FYI, he replied. It was later revealed that the detective had placed a GPS tracker inside the laptop. Unknowingly, the thief had guided him to his own house. And when it was made public who had been stealing from the students' lockers, no one could believe that it had been him all along. It was someone who they would never expect to do anything like that. It was the history teacher. It's common knowledge that America's school teachers are paid less than they should. But still, it was surprising to everyone to see one of the most reputed members of the school staff do something like that. The truth had come out, and it was time for consequences to happen. And as it will be seen later, this included more people than just the history teacher. Numerous objects that were the property of the school students were found in the history teacher's house, ranging from pieces of electronic equipment to money or jewelry. When the police racked up the total of what had been stolen to build a case against the teacher, the result was absolutely astonishing. The misleadingly mild-mannered and affable teacher was facing 9 felonies and 35 misdemeanor charges. The value of what had been stolen was about $12,000 for the felonies and $3,000 for the misdemeanors. But that wasn't all. More people were involved in this incident, and they would have to face the consequences too. The students filed a lawsuit against the school for forcing them to change the lockers and charging them for it. They won the suit, and the principal resigned, ashamed of what had happened. As for the history teacher, he still had to go to trial. Would he end up in jail for his actions, or would he avoid prison by telling on other people that were involved in the theft wave? The school was now forced to look into the matter themselves. They were desperate to find any clues that could tell them more about the incident. Luckily, the school had security cameras as part of their contract with their school district. They never thought they'd have to actually use them. But when the principal asked for the footage, he couldn't believe what happened next. After going through hoops, the principal finally got their hands on the bulk footage from the last year. He started looking through each file, which was a time-consuming process. But soon, he noticed an irregularity that shouldn't have been there. There were gaps in days in the file. Part of the footage was missing. He knew this couldn't have been chalked up to corrupted files. This ran deeper than he ever thought possible. If someone else was collaborating with the history teacher, he wasn't snitched on. The teacher ended up serving 6 years in jail and was sentenced as the sole culprit of the incidents. With nothing else as evidence, the school couldn't do much more. This meant that they were ripe pickings for the parents' criticisms. After explaining their finding to the parents, the principal hoped they would understand. But they had a lot of concerns that brought everything to a standstill. Their words were like venom. As most parents will understand, no one takes advantage of their children without hearing from them. Another parent had a very valid point. It's all good and well apologizing, but how did they get the combination? How can you guarantee that this won't happen again? This caught the principal off guard. The principal tried to dissipate the tension in the room by assuring the parents that they had taken precautionary measures. They made the students change their lock combination, and they even hired a security guard as part of the faculty. The meeting finally came to an uneasy finish. The principal just hoped that it would be enough. He knew that all eyes would be on the institution now. They just had to make sure not to mess up again. The principal wanted to make a brighter future for their students and had to try and make sure the past stayed in the past. But despite his best efforts, he saw scathing reviews of the school from unsatisfied parents. Even if it hurt to see all of the criticism, he could at least chalk it up as a valuable lesson. He'd create a new policy to make sure every teacher had a background check run on them. Hopefully, that would end this once and for all. In the following months, the school slowly started turning around. New reviews were trickling in with good things to say now that the nasty business was behind them. It just shows that hard work and dedication can save anything. The principal never found out who was responsible for helping the history teacher steal from the students. But it never happened again. Who do you think the real culprit was?